Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Sideline Sports Show. Today is Monday, May 11th, and we have a relatively packed show for you today. Going to talk about the UFC and the increasing number of plans for sports to resume. So, as very, very obvious, there hasn't been a lot of sports because of the coronavirus. But we saw a change to that this Saturday. The UFC held the first real sporting event outside of the Korean Baseball League. And I thought it was a success. I'm not a big UFC fan. I don't really know the individuals who are fighting. I don't follow the UFC, but what I do want to talk about is what this means for sports going forward. This is like I said, this is really the first step that we've seen bringing back sports outside of Korean baseball. Obviously, there were no fans at this UFC fight. There were very few personnel. There were people ringside, medical staff. There was obviously the ref, and then the fighters. But I think this is a very, very positive step going forward. I'm not surprised that the UFC was the first to, in the United States, to resume, especially how adamant Dana White was to keep the UFC running and to, keep sports on for fans. Even going as far as butting heads, trying to find states where politicians would let him hold his fights, almost deciding to go out and buy a private island just for UFC fights. I think that just kind of everyone kind of realized then how much Dana White really wants to keep sports going and really wants to resume a sense of normalcy per se, as we have gone a very long time without sports. Now trying to get more towards, I got my notes here, working towards some stats and things of that nature. I mean, the Major League Baseball provided a study which was the number of their employees who had the COVID-19 antibody. And just so having the antibody doesn't mean people who actively have it. It means that people who had it and now they have the antibody, which they can hopefully combat the virus if they unfortunately should contract it again, and they shouldn't have really bad symptoms. It was revealed from the study, out of the 5,603 employees, that 0.7% have the antibodies. So roughly 39 of Major League Baseball's employees, 39 employees had the virus and have been cured of it. And importantly, there have been no deaths. There were a couple of minor league players, 2 in the Yankees minor league system I know that had the virus, and I believe a Red Sox minor league player had the virus. But at this point, it doesn't seem, people don't seem to believe that any Major League Baseball players have it. Unfortunately, Orioles star Trey Mancini is dealing with something a lot more. Well, actually, I can't say it's a lot more dangerous than the coronavirus, because he has stage 3 colon cancer, and he's fighting that now. That news isn't breaking or recent. It's a little bit later on, but it has, it's been in the news for about, I think, a week and a half now. But definitely hope that Trey Mancini is able to overcome that. And obviously, his health and the health of all players is paramount to resuming sports. Now a little bit more towards the business side of things, outside of just the kind of social aspect of it, is that Major League Baseball owners have have mentioned reducing salaries of players because of the season being shortened, and the MLB Players Association are incredibly upset at this. Obviously, they feel like they deserve their salaries, regardless, because of something being out of their control. And they are quoted as saying they'd be willing to fight if owners try and reduce their salaries. So that's really going to be something that's going to be spotlighted more once we either resume the season or it's canceled, depending on what happens. But Trevor Plouffe, who is a former Minnesota Twin, Texas Ranger, Tampa Bay Ray, he tweeted about a week ago that he has heard from sources that July 1st will be within the first week of July is when baseball will resume. Now, granted, that's, we're not sure of his source, not sure how legitimate this is, but considering he is in the sportscasting world, he works for a company that does baseball news, podcasting, that kind of thing, and being that he played Major League Baseball, it is more than likely that there is a lot of truth behind behind this claim that he's making, so that's definitely something to look out for. But as we know, everything is changing really rapidly, so there's a very good chance that things change and we aren't able to get the season resumed as quickly as that. Shifting now gears towards the NBA. Originally, it was that in mid-May, end of May, the NBA would open the practice facilities, and people were hoping by the end of May to have the NBA back. But Adam Silver had a meeting with players, owners, general managers, and he said that a decision to resume might be pushed in March. He still hopes to keep the playoff format the same, which is 7-game series, not reducing because of everything that happened. And I'm really not sure what their plan is in regards of the NBA season was very close to the end. I believe they were 5 or 6 games away from the end of their season, so I don't know if they're going to try and play those last 5 or 6 games, or they're just going to cut the season where it is and start the playoffs with the current with these current records. I no matter what the decision that is made, there's going to be a lot of backlash because you have teams that are 2 or 3 games out of the playoffs or out of the race, saying that they think they should play those 5 or 6 games, and then you have the teams that were ahead by the 2 or 3 games saying that nope, just end the season. So I think that's going to be really, really interesting as it unfolds. He also said that if a player tests positive, that they will be quarantined, and that they were hoping to have daily tests, but there's not much they can do in terms of if a player tests positive, which I was kind of shocked. I thought he would say that if a player tests positive, that they would just shut it down, considering the plan is to have only 1 or 2 cities of games. If you have all the players kind of congested with each other, the spread of that will be a little bit more. There's a better chance of a spread, but not sure if there's more information. We haven't heard a whole story from Adam Silver. He seems to be the owner of the commissioner of sports that has had the biggest, has been the most vocal about the plans of his sport amidst all the uncertainty that we have. You really haven't heard a lot from Roger Goodell, and really haven't heard a lot from Rob Manfred, considering that it's pretty much it's taken out 2 full months almost of the Major League Baseball season. But I think a lot of people are upset at Rob Manfred specifically for his lack of punishing of the Astros, the Red Sox, for their cheating scandals, because a lot of people think that they have the concrete evidence that they cheated and that they should be players should be suspended, but that's people's problems that they have with Commissioner Manfred at this time. But back to the NBA, I said 1 to 2 locations, but no fans. And that, I think, is what is going to be the biggest drawback. Because, I mean, we all know that there's going to be no fans, but 40% of the NBA's revenue, almost half their revenue, comes from fans, concessions, ticket sales, merchandise. A lot of the league more or less would have a very difficult time running without all of the proceeds or the revenue they get from fans. And this also is having an effect in Major League Baseball, and even potentially could have a problem in the NFL, as you have uh, people with season ticket packages. Baseball more so. If you have a season ticket package, you have, I believe it's 81. Yeah, half the Major League Baseball season, 81 tickets. And now, are those going to be refunded? Or are you going to get it rolled back to get more tickets at another? It's something that we're going to have to keep an eye on, because nobody really knows how. There's no income, but there's still payments that are going to have to be made for all sports. This isn't just sports. This is also businesses that have been closed because of this. So it's going to be really interesting how payments are working. I know the Los Angeles Rams at this point still owe Todd Gurley a little over $1 million. Clay Matthews is owed a substantial amount of money. So we're already seeing teams are having some economic problems, and then you add the fact that they aren't really going to be able to make as much revenue with the seasons being on hold, and it's becoming a lot more evident that there's a good chance that the NFL in the fall will be affected. And I think the biggest thing to note with the NFL is that there really aren't there are no training camps. There's no really team building, and it's been a relatively busy off season. You have a lot of key pieces that have been moving from team to team, and I think it's kind of, teams need to start building relationships, because if they're going to be playing, they're playing with some new people. They have to learn a new playbook. You look at Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay has new leader of their offense and a new tight end, a new weapon, and they need to, obviously those two, Gronkowski and Brady, have been on the same page for at least Gronkowski's entire career. But you have players like Phil Rivers went to the Colts. He's going to be running their offense. He's got to be familiar with Frank Reich's offense, how he works. Jameis Winston, not really. He's a backup quarterback with the Saints, but I mean, Saints aren't really focused on football. Their coach had the virus. And then you get guys like Teddy Bridgewater, who signed early before the quarantine was taking full effect. So maybe they were able to at least get playbooks and information. But I mean, it's hard when you're not practicing, when you're just kind of on a video call, with a coach with a whiteboard in the middle, trying to figure out, who can do what effectively for the offense. And I just want to kind of backtrack a little bit, talking about about just sports with no fans in general. I think it's really, really, I think fans are the backbone of sports. I mean, because I think without fans, it just feels like it feels more like a job, I want to say, for players, because you really have you don't seem like you have a purpose when you play kind of without playing an empty arena. I mean, I know a UFC fighter won the belt, and he just threw it on the ground and says, I want to come back and get the real belt when we have a real fight, or something like that. Because I mean, you're not fighting, you're not doing it, you're working for the guys around you and as a team. But I mean, there's an element that having fans has. I mean, you think of the NFL. You get stadiums. Like, I'm a Buffalo Bills fan. You go up to Buffalo, and the fans are crazy. There are a lot of penalties, when teams can't get a playoff, they get a delay game penalty, and a lot of that has to do with the fan bases. And I think it's something that people kind of underestimate. But then when it's brought into attention, it's very, very, it doesn't seem like it's as fun of a game. Now, in terms of the NBA and the MLB, in terms of paying players, I don't know. I kind of agree with the owners in a sense is that okay, you didn't do. I'm looking at from a strictly a business sense. You didn't do anything for me, so why am I paying you? Why am I paying you not to play for me? Um, Obviously, it's a little bit different because you've signed a contract to pay him for a year. You didn't. There's no I guarantee you, no contract had a stipulation. If the season is suspended for a mysterious virus, players should not be paid until should be paid reflective of the number of games they played or that kind of stuff. And then another thing is, I know a lot of contracts have incentives. If you get 500 bats, you get a $50,000 bonus, and those incentives mean more for players that don't have as high of salaries. I mean, you look at Garrett Cole, a guy's making over $30 million a year. He doesn't care about another 50. I don't think he'd care that much about a $50,000 reward if he makes 25 plus starts or whatever it could be. But now are those incentives in a contract going to be reworked and reflected based on how long the season is going to be played, or is it, or owners just going to be like, nope, sorry, sorry, you didn't make your 500 at bats, you don't get this. But I really think that it's something that we haven't seen, and I don't know how stingy owners, sports owners, or general managers are with the money in this regard. Whether it's um, they're going to take advantage of the situation, or I don't know. It's really something we're gonna have to see. We're gonna have to see play out before we can really make a judgment. And I think we really have to just it's really easy to sit back and what if and all that, but I mean, I think it's also it it gets a lot more difficult for players, I think, to stay focused. I mean, I know my high school season was canceled, so for me, I find it hard to stay focused when there's no. You, you think about it, the next season would be for me college potentially playing in a fall season. Thanks. Um, you think of the next season would be maybe a fall season in college, but I know a lot of colleges are talking about doing the first semester, first part of the year online. All right, so that means that I won't be playing organized baseball potentially until next spring. 11 months to a year. So how do you mentally stay focused to be prepared for go time? I mean, I don't know if I'm going to be playing in the summer, if we're going to be playing. There's a lot of question marks, and I think it's very difficult for players to stay focused. Obviously it's easy. You fall into a regiment of going to the gym and whatever, but as you start, that works for the first couple of weeks. But as you start getting longer and longer, it's like, why am I getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning going to the gym for a season that's potentially 11 months away? I mean, it doesn't. It's hard. I mean, granted, they're professionals. That's what they do for a living. That's pretty much their only focus at this point. Me, high school, college, minor league athletes, high school and college athletes, actually specifically, they they have they have a lot of other things going on. Worrying about school, worrying about, all right, is my freshman year of college gonna be started online, and then I'm gonna have to halfway through the year I'm gonna be introduced to the campus and learn my way. It's how am I gonna learn? Meet people. All of the events for incoming freshmen in colleges, are all virtual or online. And how can you really get a sense? How can you meet people? Figure out, hey, what do you figure out? Hey, do you like this, that, and the other thing? And I mean, I don't. It's something that we all have to kind of think about. And I know, kind of getting off track of the sports, just kind of went out on a tangent. But the thing, I got an alert from on my phone. Yeah, no. So I'm not pulling all these straight out of the all of my sources. Um, Major League Baseball is also planning to propose a universal designated hitter in both the American League and the National League. I don't know what that'll do because I don't know what Major League Baseball's plans are. If they plan on splitting up games to, one or two cities, then I guess that would make sense because you don't know if you're going to be playing the normal number of American League versus National League teams in home or away. So if you figure you just make the DH universal, I think that makes a little bit of sense given the circumstances, but I do understand why purists are going to be like, no, play with the pitcher hitting, that's what makes the National League fun. You got to work, it makes the game is more strategic that way, figuring out, okay, I can walk the 8-hitter to load the bases because the chances of pitcher getting hit, but at the same point, I don't know what I know Major League Baseball had the plan for everybody to play in Arizona. I don't know the status of that. Haven't really heard a lot about it. I know that players, specifically Mike Trout, didn't think that was a great idea. So I don't know what they plan on, if it's similar to the NBA, having one or two, maybe 3 cities where teams play games, and just kind of splitting up. There's 30 Major League teams, splitting them up to 3 cities. They play each other, and then they all rotate, something like that. But I think the universal DH will make sense because you don't have to worry about, okay, the Dodgers were supposed to play 3 home games against the Yankees, so the pitchers have to hit. If you just let it be, I think it's important for something like this, especially with the season going to be shortened, that there be a revised set of rules that makes the game that makes it a little bit easier for games to be played. Because if there's constantly kind of figuring out, all right, who's supposed to, okay, where's the National League team supposed to be home, it's a lot more chaotic, and I think this just will make things flow a little bit better. But I think at this point that's just a proposition. Not sure where the players union will think of that, where what fans' opinions will be of it, but something that we'll definitely keep an eye on as things go forward. Now, just kind of jumping all over the place. I just got the alert. I figured I'd give my 2 cents on that, but I mean, kind of saying how it's not easy having teams and having players kind of just doing their own thing, stuck with their family, because you want to build relationships. You want to build, for example, pitchers and catchers. I know from experience being a catcher, you need a good relationship with your pitcher. You can't be figuring out what you want to do halfway through the game. You need to know what as a catcher, I need to know what my pitcher has, what his strengths and weaknesses are. You get guys that went to new teams, specifically like Garrett Coles. Yes, he did have time to work with catchers like Gary Sanchez, but who knows? He could be throwing in his backyard and he could be figuring things out. Figuring out, hey, my knuckle curve is now a little bit sharper than my slider. My slider's kind of flat. Maybe that's my new out pitch, or my fastball's starting to move a little bit more. Now all of a sudden they're trying to get back in the swing of things, and you have to relearn stuff. So I think it's really important that players stay connected, but I don't think that you can fully have the player-to-player relationships and even manager or coach-to-player relationships virtually. I think those are things you really have to, as coaching little kids, it's very difficult. A kid can kind of say, okay, yeah, you can tell me everything, but can you do it? And I know I was the same way. I'm like, all right, he keeps telling me to do this, that, and the other thing, but can he actually do it? And when my coach could do it, I was like, okay, well, that's something I should probably be doing. And I think even at the major league level, yeah, this coach could be a whole lot of information. He could talk a good game, but if he can't show you, if he can't break it down for you, if he can, as a hitting coach, if a hitting coach can tell you, make sure you keep your front side in, so that way you can get a good bat plane and a good launch angle. To most people, that doesn't make a lot of sense. To some hitters, that could be like, all right, that's cool, but now show me what that means. I know I can hear you, but I need to know what that means. What does that do for me? And I think those are parts of the game that need to be handled in person. I don't think that those are things that you can do over the internet. You can't you can only watching film is only a portion, of the game, and now all you got is film. There's no memory to fall back on now. So I think that's another thing that people don't really understand. As an athlete, you get it. You need to have relationships with players, but it's really hard to do those things when you can't physically get to know a person. You need to be able to get to know the quirks of a player, especially in baseball, because it's a long season. It is 162 games. It is a grind for 4 months. 7 months, maybe 8 if you include the postseason. So I mean, it's you need to be able to trust the guy who sits in the locker next to you. Kaylee, can you shut it down? Can you turn it down slightly? Or maybe invest in some headphones? Kaylee? Cool. And that being said, just kind of backtracking all the way back to the fans portion of it, it's not easy when you don't have somebody. The closest thing that we have to this is the Orioles played a game when there were the riots in Baltimore, and so the park was closed to fans, and it was just so eerie. Like, the game wasn't interesting. It wasn't interesting to watch a game where there was players struck out, and the only clapping you heard was from the dugout from the team. There were no, you think of, okay, it's an Orioles game, they might not be that packed, but still you have thousands of fans there to kind of make the game fun for a player. You hit a foul ball, it hits a seat, and then all of a sudden you got a guy walking down to pick it up, put it in a trash can, one of the stadium employees. So not only does it not only does no fans have an effect on fans, also has effect on players, but it also has effect on people like vendors. You think about the vendors, the guys the people that work there. That's a source of income for them. That's their job. Now what's their purpose? They're out of a job now, obviously, but now they could be out for a whole season, because what do you need a concession stand worker for when you have no fans to purchase concessions? I mean, I'm sure that these are all points that Major League Baseball, I'm referencing Major League Baseball because that's something I'm more familiar with, but all the sports, the NBA too, if they resume without fans, all the concession stands, all the merchandise stands, those employees are going to be out of work, and that's a source of revenue that's not going to be collected. I'm sure that these are all things that have been focused, but I think the everyday fan doesn't think of these things because they only think of, I need to watch my team play, I want to watch my players play. And I think that it's a valid point that we need to consider, but I just think that there is a lot of things in the game and just a lot of factors that exceed the sporting aspect, the actual sporting event. I think that there are other things that have just as big, if not a bigger effect on the resumption of sports. I think that we don't really have a solid plan as what's going on, and it's hard for me to fill up a time slot for a podcast like this because there's nothing to talk about. It's just rehashing the same news and talking about things over and over again, and it's hard. It's hard for fans. It's hard for people like me who's a fan, but I'm also trying to make something out of this, making a project or making a podcast or something, making it out of nothing. So I think this is just something that we're going to have to see. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. This has been the Sideline Sports Show. I'll see you guys later.